ministries here in the diocese. She's the money woman, and she will give the money for ministries around justice.
Wow. John and Neil seem to know her very well.
Yes.
I'm thinking personally. So it's their fault that I'm going to be holding you from lunch. So before they leave, they're the ones if you get hungry. Being introduced as a money person, boy, that will perk up some ears, I guess. I'm Marybeth, and Episcopal Ministries of Long Island is, well, first of all, our mission is to help bring the teachings of Jesus from the pew to the public square. So we're trying to get faith in action. We are the, I guess we are the, I was just trying to get that, it doesn't matter. We are the money people, but there's more than that. But yes, we, just to say, because especially even within the diocese, I think there's a little confusion. Episcopal Ministries is actually its own corporation, but here we actually work very much like a department of the diocese. So we really want to support the faith, the community outreach, the justice work of parishes and partners in any way we can. So so some of the ways we try to do this are three main areas. So yes, resource. Sometimes all we need, we've got everything else lined up. We just need funding to get something done. Sometimes we just need to cultivate. What are we doing? And what are other people doing? So we know that we're stronger when we're learning from others who are doing, and we're not working in isolation and trying to scratch around to see what's going on and where do I dive in. So we'll try to connect people. Simple, like the simple one to start with is like around food programs, feeding, basic ministries. When you try to start something in one place of the diocese, sometimes you don't realize how many other people are doing this and how much you can learn from it. And we have found when we bring people together, just even through these Zoom meetings, we were having monthly and Zoom meetings, particularly during COVID, when people are so disconnected, but they're trying to do something. How do we respond to, what's going on? And so just by bringing together people on a call, we were able to sort of connect some folks that were, let's say, we had this one phenomenal program in like Yaphank and one little remote area of the island over here, and then some folks over on the other side of the island realize, oh wait, how are you doing this? Like now we all have our own concepts of what it means to, we can all provide a meal, we can take away meal, this or that. But sometimes it's a little nuances of whether it's a pantry program or a meal program. For example, it's that the hospitality and the connection that goes beyond just handing over the food. But it's the listening and the presence, and how do we do it, and how do we connect with people in a way that they feel we're honoring their dignity, and we're connecting with them as neighbors, kind of like John and Neil are talking about, neighbors helping neighbors. We don't, when you, as opposed to like walking in and handing and people walk away, serving a meal and then sitting down with people, listening, who are you? And so and sometimes these things are so simple, but when you hear another, to hear the experience that's one parish is having with this, and you kind of realize what community means to people in addition to food. And so part of what we do is, that's just one example of how do we connect people to one another. And we also try to, we provide trainings as well. So one of them being like an asset-based community development. So another way of looking at how do we want to approach what we want to do in a community. It's always from a deficit, what the community doesn't have, what do we need, but what is there in the community as well. So I'll talk a little bit about an example of that in a sec. And the last one, like general areas about, we call it amplifying, finding other community partners who are, following that same mission, or maybe it's an organization, like Neil said, housing. Yeah, you're not going to tackle housing by yourself, but if we can help you identify some areas that you want to get behind, that's still your ministry. That's your parish ministry, even if it's not branded as St. James, that if you guys get behind another organization that's leading and doing what you feel called to do, that's still your ministry. Like, we found that sometimes parishes get caught up in, well, we're just a small parish. There's only like a few of us. How are we going to do? Well, don't do it by yourself. That's how you're going to do it. Don't do it on your own. You're going to find some friends, different churches, different denominations, or your parish next, in your deanery. So we want to, we encourage parishes to let us know what they want to do, what you're interested, what you're passionate, what you feel called to do in your neighborhood. And if we can connect you to some, help you think through who else is doing this. So those are just, the broad, scope of what we try to do. And I'm going to go try to do this relatively quickly so that you can ask me and I can talk to you, tell you what you want to hear, not what I'm just thinking is in my head. So the other thing that we've done recently is we've sort of rebranded our website and our some of our materials. We identify different focus areas, not because we provide, we've got a pot of money for this particular grant or the other one, but what we're doing in terms of saying, in grouping these focus areas around upholding human dignity, like providing food and basic, it could be food, thrift stores, and other things that fall under that, creation care, etc. It's really so that that our website in many ways becomes a resource in and of itself, so that if people are interested in one particular thing, and we have articles that will be tagged. So if you're thinking, I'd like to do something for creation care, and you come to our website and you click on creation care, you'll learn a little bit about what we're doing and also what other parishes are doing. If we have, you'll hear about, the garden at St. Francis in North Bellamore, and you'll read about what they're doing. And as we get further along, so it just becomes a hub, a resource hub. The other, so what I was gonna do, if this makes sense, real quick, just give you a couple of examples of, so I guess I should go back since I was introduced as a money person. So I should go back and give you a quick. So the grants that we provide are generally the parish mission grants, is what we're called. And you get $15,000 is the maximum amount of money for a particular project. And it's for so this is, I'm not sure where everybody is coming from, but this obviously, unfortunately, is limited to parishes here in the Diocese of Long Island. Other dioceses have similar, but not everybody does. So caveat, I can't promise every diocese has a similar structure, but for us, we provide these mission grants, and I'm just going to share a couple of examples of what they are, who we've been funding, and kind of what we encourage, or maybe rather than saying what we encourage, but what we recognize was really important about what some of these folks were doing. So at Grace and Resurrection in East Elmhurst, they came to us and said, we want to start a tutoring, we want, would you help us fund a tutoring program? And what I loved about their proposal was all the pieces came together, under our asset-based community development kind of look. They did a phenomenal job of asking the community what you need, not assuming what the community needs, not thinking, oh, well, they probably are, but they really went, like they were like door to door. They were asking folks in their other, at the other churches, what are you seeing? And because there was an area that was, there's definitely like a food insecurity, but what they found, others were already covering that. Like there was a good amount of support around food insecurity. But then they found there's a lot of families that were like first generation. They're like newly arrived, and the kids in school, they needed some extra support. They needed some tutoring help. And you know, the parents knew language. They weren't having an easy job helping their kids with their homework. We're helping. So they said, they heard, and that was the important part. They heard from the people in the community, this is what we need. And they looked in their parish, they had educators, retired teachers, and they had the resources. So it was like, this all fits. This is what makes sense here. And they did a phenomenal job. And as they did it, as they started it, then they recognized, wait a second, there's a need for ESL classes. So it was like, oh, okay, as they're talking with the parents, and they identified. So the important thing was just listening. So we ended up providing them with a grant to, I think the grant helped them buy different educational materials, tutoring materials. During the pandemic, they needed to reach out and get other programs that would help them do this online and do it remotely. And then they found, it kind of like opened up a whole new thing. They found these great games that would engage the kids, and in, you know, math problems that all of a sudden math can be fun again, you know. So that was them listening to their community. And as I said, I'm throwing this out quickly, but the other community said there's still the RELS program. It was what I kind of love about this one in particular is that this was a program for seniors. It was taking place in a parish that ended up closing because the congregation couldn't sustain it. But this program, this ministry of theirs, they wanted to continue it. And we found another parish that sort of adopted it and welcomed it, saw the need in their community. So another part just interesting to me to see, like, there's elements of our parishes that they were still doing the work. They were still sort of reaching their community, but something didn't happen in that parish. But the ministry was there. They saw the need, and the people connected. Like, I think often, I've heard this often, like, which sounds strange, but our parish doesn't, our community doesn't, there aren't a lot of needs in our community. And I'm like, really? Wow, good for you guys. Like, but sometimes people don't look beyond the obvious needs. Like, there's a need for community here. The woman that came to this program, and I remember meeting her, and she said, I don't want to come here first. She's like, it's for old people, you know, like, I'm not an old person, you know. She's like, yeah. But she's like, came with my friend, and, you know, and then she said, I realized I liked being here. Like, I liked knowing that people were waiting, looking for me every week. And then she said, I had to go to the hospital. And she was like, I was in the hospital. It was like a serious, you know, condition. And she said, then I started getting letters and calls. I got flowers from my little group. And she's like, I didn't know these people a few months ago. But all of a sudden, like, I had this group that was telling me they're praying for me and they miss me. And it's like filling up. She's like, this meant the world to me. So I think sometimes we overlook these real needs. These are real needs for connection, and, you know, that isolation and disconnection can be like detrimental to our health. So it's just like a little reminder that there are so many different ways that we can serve and make a real impact on people in our community. And they've done, you know, just a great job connecting people in a meaningful way. Oops, I have to go back. Video, but the quick, oh, I have a feeling I'm not going to get past this one. Anyways, the St. Nick's fridge is what I was going to show you. I'll let the video speak for itself, but this group, I think the interesting part about this is happening in Bushwick. The parishes are Iglesia Santa Cruz and Bushwick Abbey, both small, very small, you know, congregation, but they recognize the need for food in their neighborhood. And I guess this was taking place. It started, well, I'll let them tell you the story and then we can talk. And then after I show you this video, I want you to just, after I've thrown all of this out at you, let me know where you are or what is of what you're curious to hear about, what is, let's see, hopefully this is the right link. Trying to get it from the right drive. Sound. Oh, no. I'm going to try this again. Sorry.
Hey, can you guys see that okay? We can play it from here. Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and play it for you.
if we go back to the origins of the feeding ministry here at Iglesia de la Santa Cruz in Bushwick Abbey, it really emerged during the pandemic. And shortly after, in 2020, in the spring, there was an organization that sprang up called Bushwick Ayuda Mutua, which is Bushwick Mutual Aid and Mayday. And they came to me and they said, we really want to get some food to people. And the easiest place to do that would really be the nave.
As the COVID crisis emerged, Mayday recognized that there was going to be food insecurity also amongst all the crises that were happening. We collaborated to use the nave where they weren't having services to do rapid response food distribution. But we also needed a more permanent infrastructure that was going to be here all the time. And that's where the fridge came in.
At a time when the church building was closed, it enabled us to extend church out onto the sidewalk.
So I'm here a lot at the church. A lot of times I'll just come out and check the fridge or even just sit on the stoop. And I think one of the most beautiful things I see is when I see families coming and I kind of assume they're coming for food. And so I ask them, I'm sorry, we don't have any food right now. We'll have some food later. You come back. And then while they're listening to me and nodding their heads, they're pulling out bags of groceries and putting them into the fridge. I really think that is one of the beautiful things of the fridge. It belongs to the neighborhood, and the neighborhood has embraced it as theirs.
Put the apples up and then organize them in rows. Let me shut my trunk.
Okay.
And then keep these bags for later.
And it makes me feel like we're doing the work of the neighborhood of God. And the fact that this fridge is the chapel of food for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's good for now.
Yeah, that's good.
On Tuesdays, we distribute these prepared meals that come from North Brooklyn Angels. And if any of those meals are left over, we can just put them into the fridge and someone will pick them up later. Then on Wednesdays, of course, we have our big produce delivery that comes from St. John's Bread and Life down in Bushwick. There's a restaurant called BK Janney, which provides us with, I believe it's 80 pre-prepared meals on Thursday evening.
Mi responsabilidad es estar temprano y organizar la comida, los paquetes de comida que vienen, tener limpia la nevera primero y después poder poner un poco de comida ahí y dar a la gente toda la ayuda.
The blessing of or the advantage of a small congregation is that you're looking outward rather than looking in. Like a lot of big congregations will say, we don't need anybody else. We got everything we need right here. So I think for us, always like trying to find partners and trying to find other people in the community and volunteers and it's that slow, laborious work.
We couldn't have done this without Episcopal Ministries, especially for a priest like me in a tiny church. What makes it special is the relationship that we have with the staff at Episcopal Ministries and the support that we receive. And as long as you can articulate a real need and a way forward to meeting that need, chances are Episcopal Ministries is going to want to support it. We continued to have a relationship with Episcopal Ministries that I think helped sustain us and connected us with other people in the diocese who were doing similar kinds of work, so we didn't feel alone.
I appreciate this group because they don't care if you are not attending the church, if you are a Catholic or any religion, they don't mind. They give you what you need, and they are very religious. They are a good heart.
One thing I would like people to know is that I think food insecurity right now is worse than it was during the height of the pandemic. I think a lot of people feel like we got over that, so a lot of the funding has gone down, a lot of the generosity has gone down. So just to remind people that we still need food, we're not getting nearly as much to feed people. The lines are longer, the distribution is longer, and the food goes so quickly. And so we need support, we need financial gifts, and because getting free food isn't always an option.
I am much more optimistic about humanity and our capacity to overcome difference and work together than I was before the pandemic. I guess I'm proud because I felt like we were able to do something during this global crisis that brought people together, just in our little area. It's a small thing, it's not going to make the headlines, but we were all nourished by that, by the ability to reach out and extend ourselves and work together. You have to spend a lot of time just waiting for those things to emerge, but when they do, they can really be beautiful.
And some of our grantees do, like the program sustained itself afterward. Others realistically don't. So yeah, we will provide funding year after year.
Here's my question. He said that you are separate from the diocese, but you work as part of the diocese. And so you see where the need is because you are funding programs to deal with the need. Do you also say, okay, for the last 5-10 years, we've been funding this. Has the diocese thought about how to, right now we need a both and.
Mhm.
There are people who are hungry, so we need to feed them. But we're looking ahead to how to eliminate this particular need. And so working with the diocese for those future programs, as opposed to continue generation, that we will eventually get to a point where we don't have to fund that anymore because that particular need is gone.
Yeah, I mean, I would, yeah, I always say, like, wouldn't it be great if you just didn't need us to do this stuff? You know, like, okay, there is no more need for food pantries, right? I would say that majority of I would love to do that, number one. That's my start. And I would say that most parishes, you know, are trying to address what's in front of them. There is two parishes in particular right now who have been doing supporting, well, one is a feeding program, weekly meals. They started to take that question, like, so how do we're happy to have people come together, but how do we eliminate the need for this? And they were able to get a small grant from us to hire a part-time social worker who is working with the people that are showing up to see how do we facilitate getting housing to get into, and it is as Neil said about housing, a very slow process, even on an individual basis, but they're starting. Another group that was noticed the problems with homelessness in the county parks, the Suffolk County Park. So they started the food pantry and to address it, but they also are trying to figure out how do we get beyond that into, and so kind of what I was saying before, now I've just recently brought these two groups together and we're trying to pull a few others to say, okay, while we're feeding, to your point, while we're doing this, what is our next? And this literally is just happening. So I'd love to say where it went, but right now we're just gathering and trying to figure out where do we go from here? What can our role be? Because, and I have brought that up and the bishop understands and agrees, you know, if we're going to develop property, well, should we be putting up, is he listening? Is this still recording? No. If we're putting up housing, we can't just be putting up market rate housing. So then we raise all this money for us to do ministry so that we can feed people because they've been put out in their home. You know, like, we got to put this stuff together, you know? So, yeah. Oh, you, you, sir, in the back, did you have a comment? No. He's one of our good partners. You'll hear from him later. So I know you guys are going to lunch, so I don't want to hold you, but I'm around. I appreciate seeing you. I'd love to hear from you. I wasn't sure how to provide information, but since you're here and my office is down the hall, I could just hand it over to you. And I have some stuff there. So thank you.